Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. I'm Greg Stuckey. I'm Chief Research Officer at Insights Now. I'm delighted to be here today with Kate.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for introducing me, Greg. And thank you everybody to joining us. I do see a few familiar names and some new to me names, so that's always really exciting to have an audience for these webinars. Greg and I are really looking forward to discussing the Agile innovation process in more detail and how consumer behavior really plays a major role in successful implementation.
Yeah, we're going to be talking through three essentials today to ensuring your agile innovation approaches are really activating consumer behavior. And really over the last, say, 18 years or so that Insights Now has been in business, we've found that these three essentials are pretty much the hardest for companies to wrap their heads around. It's hard to move from one type of process to another. So if as companies move forward, we figured we would go ahead and give a webinar on these three essentials because if there's knowledge about what you have to accomplish, we think that we can also help change the behavior along the way. All right, some housekeeping tips today. There is a questions box on the webinar interface here. You can ask us questions anytime. We'll see those. If those pop up and they're good, we can try and answer them in real time. If not, we'll have a Q&A at the end where you can add more questions as well. All right, let's get going. So to kick us off, let's start by asking the question, what does activating consumer behavior really have to do with agile innovation at all? Well, to answer this, we got to look at the difference between a stage and gate process and an agile process. Stage and gate processes are more linear. They're fairly regimented processes where you have defined types of research that are being done at each stage with a gate where you have to make a decision if we're moving forward or not. They tend to have long timelines, and the decisions tend to be focused on historical metrics, meeting either hurdle rates or some historical standard or some specific ROI goal to hit. Whereas the agile processes are a series of rapid iterative sprints, and they are very flexible. You have a broader research toolbox, and you're picking and choosing the methods that are going to get you the best information for that particular innovation plan. You tend to have shorter timelines with lots of rapid iterative sprints, and your decisions are different. They're focused on a behavioral KPI. And so that means they're focused on metrics that say, if we get to here, we think we can change behavior. And that really is the fundamental difference between the two in terms of activation of consumers. Activation during a stage and gate process really doesn't happen all the way until the end, where you're starting to bring in the ad agencies and the marketing team saying, okay, now that we have this great product, how do we make it successful in market? Whereas in an agile approach, activation is happening at every single sprint. As you go through every sprint, you're asking yourself, did we create something? Do we have enough information to say that we can change this behavior and activate people in the market? So we like to kick it off first with a poll. We want to know which is most true for you and your team, and where are you at in your particular process? So I'm going to launch this poll, and love to see everybody go ahead and there we go, launch it. Go ahead and let me know which of these is most true for you and where your team is in the process. Are you really primarily a stage gate or style organization? Are you transitioning maybe to a more agile or already more agile? Maybe you just do both, maybe a mix of the two depending on the situation. Maybe you're not even sure where your business is. So let's take a look at that. All right, we've got a good information coming in. I'm going to close this. Almost everybody's voted already. Getting close, and I'm going to share that out. Looks like we're a pretty good mix of stage gate and agile. Well, that's actually pretty exciting. So excited to see so many people doing agile approaches. Now, we've been focused on agile for a long time. We've spent a lot of time training companies who want to be more agile and really what we find is it's all about changing your focus. And last year we partnered with Culinex, who's a culinary company out of Washington, to launch an agile innovation process for clean label products. A couple of months ago, we launched our innovation center, which we're really excited about because that's got the goal of adding tools to your toolbox and information to your toolbox to give you greater success in agile innovation as well.
Yeah, so Greg, I may be completely biased here when I say this, considering I'm the director of our Innovation Center, but I'm actually really impressed with our suite of offerings that we have available on our platforms that truly help support teams and their quest for executing on an agile innovation process. Now, part of my job is to continue to build out and add new features and functionality to support companies, again, moving towards these agile approaches. We have on our docket in the next couple of months to launch 3 or 4 new features as well, so stay on the lookout for that. And specifically, the Innovation Center is comprised of the 3 different sections. We've got the Learning Center, the Scoring Center, and the Testing Center. Now, we won't go into any great detail or specifics today regarding how the centers operate. I am never one to turn down a coffee date or a Starbucks run or a lunch meeting if you want to share more of a demo or more of the specific workings of these. But what we will give you today is a few short examples on the resources that exist within our platform, and hopefully this will spark some inspiration for how you and your team can activate consumer behavior through our resources.
Well, it's certainly exciting to see it all come together, and it's really important. I personally think that you gotta have more than tools alone, right? You've got to be able to change your personal behavior and your company's mindsets around what you have to do to activate consumers. And I think that's the most important part. You can have all the tools you want in the world, but if you don't have a mindset towards activating consumers, you're not going to accomplish it. Those tools will fall flat for you anyway. So today we're going to go through what we think are the 3 essentials of agile innovation that really need to be adopted. The very first essential is integrating more perspectives. Key here is that you've got to be able to bring in more viewpoints on what is going to connect the dots between the consumer and the consumer's experience, such that you bring a behavioral perspective so you can make sure that any new product you bring, any new service you offer is actually going to impact people in their daily lives and improve their lives for the better. So bringing in more perspectives. A lot of innovation teams are very small and like to work in their own little bubble. Those innovation teams are going to have a harder time activating and building super successful products than if they pull in more perspectives. The second is committing to using behavioral metrics. Many companies that we talk to are stuck with purchase intent, liking, traditional measures, choice measures that while are good, they're focused on historical. They know they won't get fired if they use and or bring a purchase intent score to the table. Whereas if you're really trying to activate consumers, just knowing if they like a product or not necessarily really the whole story. So you've got to be able to commit to learning new metrics and integrating existing behavioral metrics that you may not have used before. And then the final piece is really getting comfortable with behavioral methods themselves. And there's a lot of great behavioral methods that are designed where the insight is going to be about what are the elements that can impact consumer behavior at the end of the day, not just what consumers believe, but actually how to change them and or how to leverage existing behaviors so that you improve their lives overall. So we're going to take you through some examples in each of these areas. We're going to use a quick agile discovery, concept creation, product building, sprint series, so that as a framework, so we can just talk through how these things look. So let's start at the beginning, integrating more perspectives earlier. First and foremost, it's about integrating the perspective of behavior and consumer. You can't activate consumers to do something if you're not thinking about behavior and the consumer all the way at the beginning. Even if you're focused on making a technology-oriented innovation, you've got to be focused, asking yourself, well, how will this impact? How could this impact? How might this impact consumer behavior? How might this impact the perceptions and the beliefs of people? Second, you need to be able to pull in more expertise. And I mentioned this earlier. We've got a nice little diagram that we built that gives you a little helpful hints as to the types of topic areas, as well as the types of people and expertise you may need to be bringing into your team. Now, often, since innovation teams aren't massive, you can't just have 12 people, 13, 14 people on your team. You do have to be able to identify these people within your organization or within your network so that you can bring these perspectives in. You need to bring in the marketing and the social psychology, the anthropology. You got to be bringing in the business, the procurement, the organization management. All those elements have to come together. A successful product is more than just a product. It's the business around that product as well. And you've got to be able to have all those perspectives integrated in.
So we also want to point out that the innovation team members aren't the only perspectives that you should tap into. And one of the ways Insights Now integrates new points of view is through our Innovation Center with consumer perspectives. In general, by understanding consumer behaviors, it increases our knowledge of behavioral psychology, which helps you see what changes are on the horizon and why. Insights Now's COVID-19 tracker, which is what you see in the video here, is a great example of how we've been studying consumer reactions and emotions throughout the pandemic. And in doing so, we saw shifts in everything from their grocery store buying behaviors to social interactions, and we used this information to help inform innovations and make predictions based on those changes and conversations that we've been monitoring. And our analysis for this COVID-19 tracker is actually available in the Learning Center, and these different milestones are reported on every few weeks. And then also related to consumer perspective is Insights Now's Clean Label enthusiasts. These consumers are part of a behavioral segmentation who support clean label initiatives, and they've taught us quite a bit on how the free from movement is changing around the world. We've identified CLEs in 10 countries and growing, and CLE perceptions are impacting their buying behaviors. And in turn, those types of adaptations are being reflected in CPG products, from food to personal care products and lots of categories in between. We leverage CLE's perspectives in everything from product ingredients to buying trends. And our behavioral reports section of the Learning Center goes really deep into different topical areas on how these perspectives can guide your agile innovation processes.
Right. Now, the second essential is committing to behavioral metrics. And in terms of committing to behavioral metrics, at the very beginning of the discovery process, your innovation process, you need to be asking yourself what types of behaviors you want. One of the simplest things to ask is, are we going to be nudging or disrupting people's behavior? Am I nudging existing behavior along, make it more frequent, make it more common, or am I disrupting something they're doing and trying to get people to do something new? If you're nudging, what metrics do you have in place that are actually measuring how well you're nudging? If you're disrupting, what measures do you have that are actually measuring how well something disrupts people? Right? What specific change in behavior are you looking for, or is going to be required for this innovation to be successful? Or what specific change is a consumer hoping to accomplish? And how can you measure that specific change? What are the contexts? What are the cues? What are the triggers that could go on? And one of the burning questions here is really, what metrics should I use to measure, and how well will it measure the behavior? So if you stick with measures like purchase intent and liking, you clearly see liking doesn't measure context, purchase doesn't measure how well it works in a context. So you've got to get measures identified for your specific piece of innovation that are going to measure how well you can move people along through their behavior. And we've got the habit flywheel here on the screen. You can see a cue triggers a routine in which they pick a product that signals a reward. They have to associate that back to the queue. If you're not measuring all the elements along this process, or measuring the elements that help you understand how well you're doing at moving people along, how well are you making them, cycling them through this routine where they're picking your brand, then you're not really having measures and metrics that are going to tell you how to activate people at the end of the day.
Yeah, so Greg, I think it's important to note that it's not just one type of behavioral metric that we're looking at. There's not just one type of score, not one type of measurement. And in the Innovation Center, we use a combination of different behavioral techniques. And one of those is one example of that is through understanding behaviors related to plant-based meats. We've been assisting companies as the consumer drive toward plant-based meats alternatives continue to rise. So what you see in this scorecard is a combination of different factors, different motivations, and different metrics. Everything from analyzing diet trends and product introductions. So one of those scores is about applying our implicit-explicit scoring technique to specific claims that might trigger behaviors. Another way is looking at ingredient scores that could prevent consumers from trying a product or actually encourage the trial of a product. And also the degree of the implicit trust in a brand. So combined, when we look at multiple behavioral factors, this creates a score, in this case a particular scorecard, for understanding how different brands can trigger varying consumer behaviors based on trial and adoption or avoidance. So I think when you look at holistically lots of different behavioral metrics, it actually amplifies that insight and amplifies how quickly you can speed up your product development.
Yeah, I agree, Kate. And bringing together different behavioral metrics, you're going to find for different parts of your innovation or different styles of innovation, you're going to need different metrics that help you measure that activation. And it's very true. There's no one golden metric out there. You're going to find that a key element of adopting behavioral metrics is adopting several metrics so that you can understand really what are all the perspectives that are coming that could influence the activation of a consumer. Now, very tightly tied to the behavioral metrics is getting comfortable with behavioral methods. And really, this is the heart and soul of what the word agile means, is being agile enough to pick the methods and the techniques that are going to get you the right measures so that you can set your KPIs in place to determine if you have an idea that's ready to move forward, if you have concepts that are ready to move forward, if you have products that are ready to move forward. So you've got to be able to identify which methods are going to help you get to those behavioral KPIs. And then secondarily, who on the team needs to be involved in understanding those behavioral methods. One of the things that's really interesting about getting comfortable with behavioral methods, and why we say get comfortable with them, is because when you integrate more people on the team earlier in the process, you're going to find that there's a lot of people participating with more perspectives that have never seen even some methods that maybe you've been doing your whole life. So it might not be new to you, and it might be a great behavioral method, but it might be very new to members of the team. So you've got to get everybody comfortable with the methods. You've got to bring the team along with you. The other thing is you're going to find yourself spending a lot more time with consumers. You're going to find that a lot of behavioral methods make you get closer to the consumer earlier on. And the reason for this is because to activate them, to understand how to activate them, you've got to have empathy for them. So you want to have a lot of high touch methods in your technique. You want to have rapid hybrid designs. You want to use creative things that help get them to project the future. And you can't just sit back and read the reports and really learn that empathy. You've got to get out there and talk to people.
Yeah, so Greg, I want to point out that two of the examples that you had on the last slide were potentially more qualitative techniques, and that's not the only way to get more comfortable. In our testing center, which is a section of the Learning Center, we have, or I'm sorry, it's a section of the Innovation Center, we have 7 different templated survey solutions, and one of them is the idea screening methodology. And teams will use this very early on in the process to identify ideas that have an intuitive potential based on consumer behaviors. Now, this method is strongly behavioral because the execution uses all 4 ways the brain organizes information and makes decisions. This in turn allows you and your team to quickly find ideas that have the potential to impact behavior in different ways. Now, essentially, it's helping you think about how to activate behavior all the way at the beginning of the discovery sprint.
Right, and that's really key. Activation is really, at the end of the day, the key piece that you have to keep in mind in terms of challenging your current agile process, or as you're moving into more agile methods, asking yourself, how am I incorporating that into each and every part of my process, each and every sprint that I do? So the 3 essentials are key to every sprint. During the whole process of agile innovation, you're going to be focusing on that activation. Let's keep going and take a little bit faster look at sprints 2 and 3 when you're talking about concepts and product builds. When we want to integrate more perspectives at the concept creation stage, you're going to notice that you're going to go with a lot more co-creation, co-participants, bringing in other potentially outside expertise into the equation as well. You're going to iterate on platforms, iterate on concepts, and you want this rapid iterative learning. One of the things that's true about Agile and trying to move faster is if you get people together, they operate faster than if they're apart. So if you're doing co-creation, if you're working on things together with consumers, with experts, you're going to find your ideas come faster and faster. Similarly, on the product build side, co-designing, walking through iterative product builds with participants, getting more people involved earlier on in the process is going to improve the ability to really hone what aspects of the product are really going to trigger the behavior you want at the end of the day. Likewise with behavioral metrics, moving into concept creation, really asking yourself what behavioral scores are going to nudge people, what behavioral scores can I use to understand how I can disrupt people? Is it about acceptance? Is it simply that this is something that they're comfortable with already and then it naturally fits into their life? Is it about the claims on pack that's going to get them to pull something off the shelf? Is it a brand association? Is it messaging? Is it relevance to them? What are the different key metrics that you need in the concept that are going to help you understand how to activate the consumers? Similarly, in the product build stage, you're going to add more behavioral metrics that are around in the market activation. So you're going to add things like, can we get, or what's the probability of getting into a consumer's consideration set? What's the probability of choice at store, and how might their choices change? How might the category purchase behaviors change entirely when this new innovation is launched? How might it lift that category? What behavior share am I going to get out of all of the consumers' time that they have and all the key moments where this product might be used? What share of that behavior am I going to get? It's a very different measure than saying purchase intent or overall liking, which are a little more point-oriented solutions. And then, like, what's the repeat potential? Right? Early on, you're not going to really know until you get people using the products. But once you get them using the products, you can get a better and better sense of how well you can create repeat and frequency of repeat. So a lot of different metrics that you can incorporate here that are behavioral. These are just a few. Methods, there's a lot of different types of methodologies, again, that you can get comfortable with. You're going to notice behavioral concept scoring type methods, which are, as an example, available in our Innovation Center.
Yeah, so directly related also to concept scoring, we actually have a case study that's available in our Learning Center that goes into a really great explanation, the different metrics that are available within that method, everything from category lift to some choice exercises. So I highly encourage you to check out that concept scoring case study that's available in the Learning Center for free download.
Yeah, and I think the concept scoring stuff is really exciting because it gets beyond more the stage and gate, which uses more of a how do I compare to a database of information and how well things have done in the past versus a activation-oriented behavioral mindset where you're asking yourself, how might this change existing behavior, and how might this concept score in terms of its ability to impact behavior? Quite a bit of different way of looking at a metric from looking at a database of historical scores of how well a concept performed on purchase interest. Similarly, when you go into product testing, things like gauging the emotional impact, looking at how well this product actually changes a person's mood state or integrates with their sense of social pride, et cetera, so forth. All of those elements, once you get product in hand in the moment, allow you to understand better how you're going to be triggering and activating consumers. All right. So those are the three essentials: integrating more perspectives, committing to more behavioral metrics, and getting more comfortable with behavioral methods. These essentials really are going to help you improve your activation of consumers. At the very beginning, your entire team really needs to be focused on activating consumers. It doesn't matter if they're in procurement or engineering or advertising. Everybody needs that empathetic connection to the consumer, and you've got to clearly have to bring a behavioral perspective to the table. Otherwise, you're not going to be activating a behavior. Second, committing to using behavioral metrics. These behavioral metrics are going to allow you to make faster decisions because you're going to focus only on those elements that have a dramatic impact on behavior. You're going to start realizing that you don't need to gather tons and tons and tons of data. You really just need to gather the data points that are going to help you understand, am I having an impact or not? So it's going to focus you. You're going to make quicker decisions because you're going to know what metrics you're really going to decide, make your decisions on as you move through your process. And finally, behavioral methods for activating consumers means you and your team and your leadership, you're going to have to get more comfortable with a wider variety of methods. And you're also going to have to get comfortable with saying, okay, for this specific innovation sprint, what are the best methods that are going to answer the questions that we have? Which are the things that we need to do to be agile, to change maybe historical practices, to change what we have traditionally done, to make sure that we're actually answering the question about how to activate those consumers in that moment.
I don't know about you, Greg, but I feel like we introduced a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time today. But we would love to kind of wrap up this discussion and understand, which of these do you feel is most difficult for you and your company? Is it the idea of adopting more perspectives, adding in new behavioral metrics, or getting comfortable with new behavioral methods? If you don't mind taking a moment and voting on this really quick, would be really helpful.
All right. Well, I get the joy of seeing how the votes are coming in as they're flying in. And we've got a few more people voting here. I think I'll cut it off so we can get to questions and answers and share that out. Looks like it's like the more perspectives, looks like most people have feel that that's not the hardest. So it looks like more in the behavioral metrics and the behavioral methods challenge, but certainly across the board, some good challenging areas. Well,
honestly, Greg, what I
excellent.
find interesting about these what I find interesting about these poll results compared to the first one and this one is just how spread out the innovation process really is, right? Like there's a mix of people that are doing stage and gate, there's a mix of people doing agile, and these challenges are really present across the board in terms of their different degrees.
Yeah, very, very true. Very true. All right, well, it is question time. And if you have any additional questions for us, go ahead and type them into the question box there. I'm gonna pop up my screen. Can you provide a specific behavioral metric example? We showed a few on the screen. There's a lot of metrics that are behavioral. The first question you have to ask yourself when you're looking at a metric is this metric specifically addressing what triggers a person to have a behavior, or will prevent a person from having a behavior? So if you're looking at any given metric, if you ask yourself how well it connects, you'll figure out a little bit about more what it means. Even a purchase intent question is a predictor of some sorts of people's behavior. It's their anticipation of what they believe they will do given the information they have already. We use a lot of implicit, explicit. You've seen that throughout the slides. The great thing about an implicit, explicit technique is that implicit is when you see that you have an implicit association or reaction, that tells you that connection or association is ingrained in people's minds already. So it's something that you can leverage to nudge behavior along, make behavior more frequent, make your brand more likely to be chosen out of a consideration set. Whereas highly explicit, slower responses in an implicit explicit setting is really something that causes people to pause and try and make a decision, which means you're disrupting their brain in their normal processing. So if it is a disruptor and a positive, then you know you have something that you could help differentiate yourself on the market, help change behavior with. If it's disruptive and negative, unless you want them to stop a specific behavior, it's something that will help you understand what you might avoid so that you don't accidentally put something out there that everybody goes, well, it's a good idea, but nah. So I hope that answers the question. There are a lot of good behavioral metrics out there. We mentioned quite a few in that last slide, understanding category lift, understanding behavior share, etc. All right, any other questions? That's a really good one. Okay, I don't see any other questions for us today, Kate. So let's quickly mention next week, we've got another webinar coming up on a new topic, how the vaccine is changing our behaviors. You heard Kate mention earlier on that we're tracking COVID-related behaviors, and our most recent Q&A that we did with our team looked at, and consumers looked at whether they were vaccinated or not, whether they're planning on getting vaccinated, and those who were vaccinated, how it's changing their behaviors, those who were not vaccinated, how it's modifying and changing their behaviors. So this is a really good sneak peek as we're going through this really fast transition with the vaccine right now as to what might people's behaviors become, and what are the types of things we're going to start seeing more of, and what are the types of things that people are still going to be hesitant to do as we move forward. And that really helpful information for innovators. All right. As always, drop us a note. Kate and I are easily available here all the time. As Kate said, she'd love to have coffee with you. I will gladly have a cup of coffee with you as well. Throw my hat into that ring. So if you want to drop us a note, we'd love to get in touch with you. Thank you very much for your attention today.